I guess I'll just start at the beginning. In 2017, so I was probably a year, at least 2 years. Yeah, I think I was starting my second year in powerlifting. So I was, around 290 pounds, and I owned a private training facility in West Michigan, where we worked with primarily middle school girls soccer players. And we pride ourselves in the development of speed, but here I was at 290 pounds in a like sagittal monster operating exclusively out of a bilateral symmetrical stance. I kind of saw myself as a fraud. I said, "You're a fake, you're a phony," right? So I after a meet in October of 2017, I won the meet, and instead of being happy, I was pissed because of what I just said. I felt like I wasn't doing my athletes the service that they deserved. And so that's when I called my friend, then acquaintance, now mentor, and Derek Hansen, and just said, "Hey, I need your help." And so we started working together, and there was a few nicks and bumps along the way. Can't tell you how many times I pulled my hamstring. I can tell you that I've blown out both calves, tore my plantar fascia, partially tore my Achilles, tore my pectineus as well. So it was quite a humbling process the past 3 years. But we were able to, once we were able to sprint consistently without problems, Derek had made the suggestion, well, let's try and get you into a meet. And so on February 9th of 2019, I went over to my alma mater at Grand Valley State University and competed in the 60 meter for their indoor meet there. And I was 260 pounds that day, and I ran a 7:58. And then Derek and I decided that, well, let's see if we can get you going 100 meters. And so then I went on the rest of all last season to do, I think, close to 10 100-meter races throughout that summer, and developed some serious chronic Achilles tendinopathy in my left Achilles, and some tendinosis there as well, and had been hampering me, since then, since July of last year. It's almost a full year of dealing with this injury. And Derek had been helping me throughout September and all of last fall. And we actually went to Derek's house in Vancouver, where Nikos introduced us, and me especially, to his microstretching concept. And the first night that Nikos had me on the table, I almost fell asleep. The parasympathetic response that you get from that, I really, really enjoy that. I do it now before I go to bed, and I sleep very well. But wasn't making a whole lot of progress, was actually taking more steps backwards than forwards along the journey. I got a series of perineural injections in December, along with a prolotherapy injection in the beginning of January, and then a PRP injection 2 weeks later, and then another PRP injection 8 weeks later on March 17th. And Nikos and Derek have been at the forefront of my rehabilitation process. We're going on, I think, 10 weeks now since my last injection, and things are progressing very, very well. So I say this with cautious optimism. I think that we might actually be out of the woods. This has been a good experience. Like I said, I do Nikos's prescription every night before I go to bed, and tomorrow we put the spikes on. So we'll see where the Achilles is at when we really test it tomorrow with spikes on a track, and through a pretty voluminous, relatively speaking, for me, max velocity workout. So I don't know if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, anybody else, or Nikos, but that's been my experience with Nikos over the past almost year now, and it's been very, very enjoyable. So because it allows me to do what I love, which is run fast. So
can I ask how much you weigh now? Your body weight?
241. Oh. Yeah. So the goal, Jimson, would be to run under an 11 next time race is happening. So my best time last year was an 11-1 at 260. So I'd like to run in the 10s.
That's impressive for a big guy.
Well, I mean, it takes a village, Jimson. It really does. I mean, you know, I'm very, very lucky and fortunate to have Derek and Nikos and several others. There's at least, I think there's close to 10. There's got to be close to 10 in that in our group, right, Nikos? Everybody trying to.
There's about 10 of.
Yeah.
There's about 10 of us.
Yeah. So I'm very, very lucky.
We have a couple of. We have some physios. We've got Derek doing strength and conditioning. I do the recovery regeneration with the microstretching. There's a foot specialist. There's another physio, Jordan. There's Kenny. There are other people that join in, and basically we monitor how Hunter's been progressing. My whole thing with Hunter was to basically take down the soreness, but more importantly, to make sure that he actually gets a good night's sleep. So, and his program was really, really simple, as we talked about in the past. And his stretches, can I get screen share? Do I have it? Yep. Let me see. Where is this now?
You able to?
What?
Are you able to share?
I'm trying to get the image of showing Hunter's
Yeah, there you go.
progression. So can you guys see this? Once it pops up, can you guys see the PDF?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
as you
maybe
can see,
reduce the size of it, like
okay, sure, no problem.
it's a little bigger.
So as you can see, the whole idea
There you go.
was
Perfect.
the whole idea was to take his Achilles, which was quite sore. It's his left Achilles, and he actually had a sore spot on the tendon itself. And recently, the ultrasound, from what we saw last week, has actually shown that he's decreased in the area of scar tissue in the Achilles tendon. But my whole mandate was to basically hit the soleus twice. Incidentally, I did introduce a Gastroc Stretch with Hunter, but he had an adverse reaction. So we actually removed that stretch because it was putting a little more compression in that sensitive spot on his Achilles tendon. So as you can see in this progression, I hit the soleus twice at the beginning and the end. But more importantly, number 2 was working on the hip flexors to try to release, because he's a big boy, but the hip flexors are getting involved with his movement. So we wanted to release anything with the hip flexors, the quads. And then we went into the IT band, which actually gets involved with protection. When a person has an injury, they do the IT band is one of the muscles, or it's not a muscle, it's a band that actually gets involved with protection. And this is why it's very important that the stretches are done bilaterally. And then we ended off with the glutes. And again, that stretch on the glute up against the wall is basically trying to work the glutes, but also the piriformis muscle. And the piriformis muscle is a external rotator that gets involved with injuries, and it. So this is why it's very, very important that we actually, and from what Hunter found is that hitting the sole, wake up in the morning, less stiff, less sore. So, and that was the key. And now he's been doing this for about 6 weeks. So we have to 6 to 7 weeks. And the goal right now is to start changing it, because it gets boring after a while for him. And I don't blame him, and I'm looking to put other stretches together for him as well. So, and he'll run below 11 seconds for sure. We got confident in that. And so, and I wanted to bring Hunter on just to basically, he is an athlete, and I wanted to bring Hunter on to talk a bit about his experiences with microstretching, and how, more importantly, the one thing that I've often stressed when I worked on Hunter back in September was it's sleep. And he does get a good night's sleep, which to me is quite. Did you maintain? You had a good night's sleep that night as well, did you not? Or was it the second night after the shoe change?
Just recently you talking about?
Yeah. Remember when you changed your running shoes and it was a lot more cushiony?
Yeah. Sleep has been better, for sure.
Good. All right. The other thing, and so I thought it would be really good for you guys to see how this progression has helped with the soleus. I know Alan has asked for other progressions, but Alan, right now we're actually working on putting courses together and we're trying to put together a bunch of progressive stretches that we want to roll out into the courses. So I hope that answers your question you asked about other progressions and stuff. So this one here, I just wanted to share with you guys for the sake of the talk, which is very, very important. And the other person that I want to call upon would be Mike Chamelo. Even though Mike works with me, he's a hockey player who's also experienced microstretching. And Mike, can you pipe in?
Sure.
Hey, before you do, Mike, hold on one second. Hey, Nikos, if for any chance you get raised up or bumped out again, on WhatsApp, I sent the link and just get in on your phone because you may get better service on your phone.
What?
On WhatsApp, I sent the direct link.
I think what happened was Jimson was right. I had to reboot the computer.
But you're still dragging.
Thanks. All right.
You're still dragging.
Mike?
Yeah, what would you like me to share?
Your experience on the bed, how it's helped you as an athlete. It's very important because I think what we have to do is I could speak about it all the time, but this is why I invited Hunter to speak on his experiences with it. And then we'd like to hear what you have to say too.
Sure. Yeah, so I don't know if Hunter can relate, but in my experience, when you get off the table with Nikos, you have different sensations. When I do the stretching on my own, I definitely notice it is beneficial. But I will say when Nikos is able to work on you, you will feel, I've never felt sensations that I felt with Nikos through. I mean, I've used Normatec, I've used, cryotherapy, all the top end type of recovery stuff that you might see, but I haven't really experienced anything from a sensation standpoint that I felt with Nikos' microstretching, which was at the time in my life, I was in Germany playing minor professional hockey when I had come in contact with Nikos. So I was in school as well. I studied for athletic training. Now I'm hoping to write the athletic therapy exam here in Canada. So I saw how, as an athlete, Nikos' microstretching helped me out so much that I said it's a shame that in our field we were never taught to stretch like this. We looked at PNF stretching. Stretching was basically a week program as part of our course, and it was kind of, nobody really had answers to any questions, and it was just kind of put it under the rug. So then when I had got on the table with Nikos for the first time, I was training about 2 or 3 hours later, and I said, okay, I'll go see what it's like. I saw some of the big time pros, the hockey guys that he was working with. I said, there's something's got to be working here, or else these guys wouldn't be sitting here. So long story short, I ended up skating 2 hours later, and it was the best I felt in 10 years. This was part of the reason why I want to take on this venture with Nikos, is because from a performance standpoint, I felt how much this helped me. And then I also have been working with it now with my dad. He's got chronic low back pain, works construction all day. And I've really been able to help him out using Nikos' hands-on stuff that I'm slowly starting to practice more with Nikos. So I don't know if Hunter, have you used stuff like Normatec and things like that?
I haven't, but you know, I was always brought up with stretching being far more intense than Nikos's prescription, right? And so when I laid down at the table in Vancouver with Nikos and Derek, you know, I was sort of like, this is like, what? This is a stretch? But you know, after a few moves, then you start feeling the effects. You start, you know, melting into the table. I mean, there was a few times there where, you know, I would take a huge deep breath and just sort of melt, and then Nikos would just be like, see, parasympathetic response, right?
Well, what I've said to Nikos when we first started communicating 10 years ago, and then in person a couple years ago, it's Canada too, it's US, maybe North America, it's probably everywhere in the world. It's training, it's everything. If it doesn't hurt, if there's not pain, it can't be doing you any good.
Yeah.
And so that's let's stretch. And the most ironic thing is what you're trying to do is get muscles to relax. And instead, I'm going to get my muscle to relax and fibers lengthen by straining it and causing pain. It's the most antithetic, but that's what everybody has done because their coach did it. But yeah, it's kind of.
No, definitely. The whole idea is to relax the neural system, which then will relax stresses on the muscle itself. But I also had one of the things Jimson was really, really keen on is the connection between, believe it or not, COVID-19 and training. So I actually put a little PowerPoint together that I'd like to share with you guys, if that's possible.
Yeah, Nikos, can I just chime in there 1 sec? I want to say something else that might help them with how they stretch at home. It's kind of what we've been talking about, but the biggest thing with Nikos's stretching is sometimes you don't really feel a stretch. Like it's the very beginning. So I know we use a scale of 3 out of 4 to 10. Now, when I'm trying to explain to people how to stretch on their own by themselves, sometimes you might really not feel like there is much of a stretch. You want to keep in mind the tension of the muscle and work within that tension. So as soon as you feel that there's tension that's developed in the muscle, then that is you're at a rough point where micro stretching, where that's where Nikos works in. Because sometimes I know Hunter, I remember watching his video with the calf stretch. You know, you put the ankle into dorsiflexion, and then Hunter's like, I don't feel anything, right? And this is where Nikos works within this range where you might not really feel anything, but it's just a subtle tension that's created in the muscle. So when you're stretching or you're telling your athletes to stretch, even if they feel it to a point where there's almost nothing, like no sensation that they feel, they're probably within a microstretching range, which is very unique because, again, you'll go on the table for 40, 45 minutes. You won't feel much stretching, and then you'll get off the table and you'll be like, what did you do to me? Because I didn't feel that he was pulling on my muscles because he was so gentle. So in this sense, Nikos, I don't know if you can maybe chime in or some things that to make sure that they're stretching at the right intensity, because like we've talked about, a 3 out of 4 is very tough to gauge. My 3 out of 4 might be different from Hunter's 3 out of 4. We might not necessarily all know what Nikos's 3 out of 4 should feel like. So when I've explained it or when I've tried to help some of the athletes around me stretch, I've always said that wherever you feel a certain muscle grab, or as soon as you feel a point of tension, that's kind of when you would stop the stretch. That's where Nikos works with them. So.
And I'll just add one thing to that, Mike, because when I'm having mostly teenage kids do this, like the perfect example I have them do is when they're doing the hamstring stretch, laying down with one knee bent, the other one, bent and relaxed against the wall. And they're like, well, I don't even feel anything. Well, reach up and touch your hamstring. And they touch it, and there's actually a little tension there. They don't feel it because it's not an intense stretch that you're used to. So right. That's all you need.
even feeling sometimes I'll feel the muscle that's being stretched, and as soon as I feel that you can feel that it almost appears that it's closer to the skin, if that's an easy way to describe it, but you can feel that it is tense and it is tight. You might not necessarily.
Did he just release the Celtic? No talking yet, no.
Did somebody ask a question?
Somebody needs to mute.
Alan, I think it's your microphone that picks up the background noise.
Alrighty, Nikos. I mean, is there anything else you want me to talk about, man?
Well, I think you've covered a lot of it. I think what's very, very important is, like you said, it's good to have Hunter and you and even Jimson and Richie. And Jimson was an old patient of mine. And the whole idea that's very, very important is to be able to, I call athletes, or not just athletes, patients that have been in a lot of pain, that have been sympathetically driven. I describe them as having sensory amnesia, which basically means that they have been in such a state of sympathetic response that they can't really feel the subtleness of when the muscle engages at that just noticeable resistance. That's what the microstretching is at that particular moment is. And when I was working with Hunter and I moved Hunter's foot, so I took it from into dorsiflexion, you could see the calf was moving. As soon as I saw the calf move, just that slight engagement, that's where I stopped. And to Hunter, it was like, I don't feel anything. But it's just, you can actually see the muscle engage when it's being stretched or being taken through its range of motion. And it's almost just the best way to describe it. I've often used the term lukewarm water, but here, if I allowed the wrist to fall this way, this is known as active range of motion. So where it stops, if I just put a little pressure on it, that's where you're getting closer to 3 or 4 out of 10 in the microstretching realm. And that's the best way to describe it. It's a subjective feeling. But the most important thing, yes, go Hunter.
I was just going to say, Nikos, I mean, it's in a way, from a feel standpoint, it's about like sprinting. It should feel like nothing, right? If you're exerting effort, you're doing it wrong, right?
Exactly. If you're exerting effort, I like that. If you're exerting effort, you're doing it wrong. But I also wanted to sort of, and this is great, we have Hunter and Mike and Jimson and kind of guys are into it, that and COVID and training. If you guys want, or we can continue discussing anything else. But I thought a PowerPoint presentation, which I worked on to show you the connection with how the body responds, whether it's physical trauma or whether it's bacteria and infection.